Hello, welcome back to Vectorworks Tutorial 9. Today we're going to be playing with a couple more 3D tools. Specifically, we're going to be spending some time with Extrude Along Path and Sweep. And we'll probably pick up a couple other cool tips along the way. So, Extrude Along Path is a way to allow you to extrude objects along any given line. So in this instance, let's say we wanted to have this circle shape follow this line all the way around. Maybe we're making a funky handrail for a staircase. So right now we have our circle, which we'll call the profile, and we have the line, which we'll call the path. So we select both of those objects, and we go up to Model, Extrude Along Path. Then you get to select which one is your path and which one is your profile. So the red one is expected to be the path. So we want to switch that. There we go. Now our line is the path. And OK. There we go. There's your handrail. And you'll notice the circle is following exactly along, the center of the circle is following along that path that we have created. So in that instance, just as a way to demonstrate how this kind of works, I had the profile touching on the path. But more often than not, you're going to just want to draw your profiles anywhere. It makes things much easier. So your profile and your path don't actually have to be touching or in relationship to each other pretty much at all. So draw your profiles in the top plan view, and then you can still select the profile, select the path, Model, Extrude Along Path. Then again, select your path object. This is correct. It's highlighted in red. There you go. A couple other things you can note in here. There are some, let me undo that. There are some options when you're running this. So if we go to Extrude Along Path, you can also do exponential scale. So if you check that, and let's say we want it to grow times 2. There you'll see as it goes, it kind of balloons out. Kind of makes a little, I don't know, pipe, a horn of some sort. Now, if you want to undo that, again, in Object Info, with this selected, you can come down here and it'll say exponential factor of 2. So let's change that to 1 maybe. Okay, let's change that to 0, and that'll just be straight. Or we can undo it and just make it be a uniform. The other thing you can do, if you don't like it being a circle, say you want this to be something a little fancier, you can get in and you can change what the profile looks like. You can also get in and you can change the path. So just double click again onto your object. And then in here you can select if you want to change the path or if you want to change the profile. Let's play with the path real quick. So with path selected, there's our line. I'll jump to a top plan view. So from here I can play with what I want this path to be. Whatever changes I make will be reflected now in the shape. Similarly, I can double click here, or I can get in and change the profile. So there's our circle. And you'll see, again, the circle is right on these crosshairs. That means that the path is right here in the middle. So it's following right along the center of this object. That'll become a little bit more important in a few minutes when we get into playing with moldings and placing things like that. So just know that it's going to, by default, want to drive right down the center of whatever you draw here. But let's say we don't want this to be a circle. I will just delete that, and I can draw a new path in here. I want it to be this funky little something. I don't know what that's going to do, but let's check it out. There we go. So there's our funky shape. Now you'll notice here, the shape that we draw appears here on the left side and it comes all the way around this way. That has to do with the direction in which you've drawn your path. By default, it's going to usually start on the left and kind of travel around. So let's take a look at our path. You can also right click and drop down to edit path or edit profile. So if we're looking at our path, every line you draw in Vectorworks has a direction. It usually doesn't matter, but in this operation it can. So if you want to see what direction you've drawn, actually, go up into here and you can just click Show Direction. This little red arrow will appear and say, yes, I was drawing in this direction. The reason that matters is because it's going to go from the point you started over to here. So if I were to switch the direction that I had drawn this line, and you can do that right here with reverse direction, now the profile is going to look completely different because the profile will start on this side and travel around. So if sometimes you're running into issues, it could be that you just need to reverse the direction. So that's something to consider. All right, let's go ahead and put this into some practical use if we can. I'm going to jump over here and I'm going to open up a new document and we'll just start drawing some walls. I'll use my double line. Actually, let's use this one, double line polygon. And 6 inches apart for my walls. Sounds good. And we'll come up. This is pretty arbitrary. And there's our little set. Oh, you can see I still have the direction on there, and I don't necessarily need that at this point. So that'll be the outline for our walls. Now I'll just extrude it, Control E. Yep, 9-foot extrusion. That sounds like a reasonable wall. So here's our little set. Now what I want to do is I want to put crown molding all the way across the top of this wall. What I will do is I'll draw a path right across the top. So let me just grab, we can do polygon, we'll do polyline tool. Either one would work. And then I'll just draw right along the top here. Again, I'm in automatic, so if I just hover over, it'll turn blue, and that means that's the surface I'm drawing on. And then I will just click and follow it along all the different corners. That I want molding on. So there we go. That's my path. And I double clicked there at the end just to finish that. So it's not a closed polygon. So that is my path. Let me go up to top plan. Now just for playing around, I'll just do a quick circle. And let's say that's my molding. I select that path. I select my molding. And model, extrude along path. Red is your path, correct? Boop. There we go. Now you'll see here, it's kind of buried in the wall. It's not sitting flush on the wall like you would want a molding to kind of do. That's because, again, the very center of your profile is running along that line. Let me undo this and I'll show it to you with some actual molding and you'll see how that gets problematic. So I will get rid of this. Let's go ahead and make an actual crown molding. A couple different ways to do moldings in Vectorworks. One would be, let's say for this crown molding we want a 6-inch by 4-inch molding. So I go tab 4-inch, tab 6 inches. And I know my molding kind of wants to fit in here. And then I grab a tool and I kind of just draw a random molding. So I could take that and extrude it. Another way actually you can get moldings into here is if you go up into your resource manager. Now you probably have this turned off because in an earlier video I said that thing just gets in the way, turn it off. But if you want it back, go up to tools. Go up to window, palettes, and then Resource Manager. What the Resource Manager is, it's kind of a storing house for all your different assets, for a lot of preloaded things, for some really cool tools in here. I don't want to get too far into it, but you can just go up into here and you can search millwork, and it will bring up tons of different moldings. You just double click on one, and that gives you the profile there. And so I would take it over here. And it's, of course, it's not a crown molding, but you do that, and then you can drag it down to whatever size you want it to be. And then there's your profile. So that's a second way to do moldings. A third way to do moldings is you can import an image. Go up to File, Import Image File. So you can bring pictures into, let's bring this picture in just for show and tell. You can bring pictures into Vectorworks. You can scale them. If you want to scale with the dimensions locked, just hold down Shift. That way it won't get all wonky. If you're not holding Shift, you could accidentally do something like that. But even once the image is in here, you can get in, you can edit the image, sepia. And you could even actually, if you wanted to, tip it up. And put it on a wall as a painting. But there's actually, if you're going to do a painting, there's actually an even better way to bring images in that has a lot more functionality, and that's called an image prop. I won't get into that too much now. At this point, I think it's good, though, for you to know that you can bring images into Vectorworks and that you can manipulate them in your work. So you can bring in an image of a crown molding you like. You can just go online and find whatever crown molding you like. Here. That's gigantic. Again, hold Shift. Scale it down. Then you can just trace this if you wanted to. So you kind of come along here. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can come back in and fix it. Oops. Just going around. Because again, you can always get in and edit your paths. So let's say that that was an accurate tracing. I can get rid of that now. And this, I can just scale down to fit into my little box. So there's our crown molding profile. And you can do that for any number of moldings. So I'll grab that. I'll grab this. And I will extrude along path. That's correct. Okay. Now, if we're looking at it, again, because it's running down the center of that profile, you'll see that our profile is buried in the wall and it's actually standing above the wall a little bit too. Let's go ahead and double click here to get in and see what's going on. We'll look at profile. And if you look here, again, you'll see those crosshairs are right through the middle of our profile. So that's the problem. If we just drag this corner, so we want that top left corner to be riding along that line we drew, then that should fix it. And there it is. So now that corner is following our path all the way around the wall. Okay, so let's do a little bit more playing now. We've got our crown molding on here. That looks pretty great. I'm a fan of that. What we can do, if we're going to do molding for this entire room, let's say, I can just copy that, Control-C, and then I will paste it in place. That means I'm just creating a copy exactly where the previous one was. So I'll select one of those, the front view, and we'll just pull it down to, I don't know, wherever our chair rail would be. Let's say 30, 32, 36 inches off the ground. So now we've got a chair rail too, except that is a huge molding for a chair rail. So let me double click and I will change the profile on this. Here's our profile. I'm going to draw something completely new. Sure. I'll get rid of this. And I kind of want to change this up a little bit. I don't like that. Maybe a little big. But the point is you can play with it and you can finesse it as much as you need to. It's got a weird little droop here. But good enough, right? Exit, and there's our chair rail. Now with its new profile. Again, I could have just copied and gotten a different chair rail detail from the resource manager or something like that. I could have easily just pulled one of these. Let's actually go back in, edit profile one more time. It's just a little big. Just shrink it down. Nice and petite. There we go. So that's our chair rail. Now let's say we have a door over here. So I'll just grab my rectangle and I'll punch a door in here. Push it back to the back of the wall. And there's our door. So something else you can do, if you wanted a trim to follow right along here, along the outside of the door, you can just draw a trim. Let's actually just pull one in from here. Let's do, I don't know, this will work. So double click that. Then we'll go up to top view. That wrong. Let's grab that again. So now you'll see that's on the ground, right where it would actually be on the ground. We have that. Then I will draw a path. Where I want that trim to follow. So currently it's oriented correctly. It's exactly how I would want this path to draw up the wall and around and over. To avoid any confusion, when I select these, I'll go to Extrude Along Path. What I'm going to do this time, well, first let's get it there to the path. What I'm going to do this time is called Fix Profile. So if I check this, this will track directly up. That point will track directly up the wall and around. And there's our molding around our door. So we've got our little casing, right? Now, of course, we have to get rid of this in the center. What you can do with that is just click on that molding and then jump up here to your split tool. From a top plan view, I can see where this other molding is. So I can just cut that chair rail right along there. And right along there. So I've made two cuts here and here, and then this piece then can just come out. And so pretty quickly you'll see we have been able to run moldings for an entire room. It really, with Extrude along the path, it really makes things much, much easier. And it can really speed up your workflow. So I encourage you to play with that tool. Okay, this is Mickey from the future cutting in with a quick polyline tool side quest. I am using it here in this video to create some different kinds of shapes. And I really kind of cruised over the functionality of this in my first video when I introduced this tool. But just to let you know, when I first talked about it, I was saying how you can do straight lines if you are in corner vertex mode. At any point, you can switch over to one of these other modes in the middle of an operation to complete whatever you're doing. But there's also sort of a shortcut. If you're in corner vertex mode, if you're just clicking along with your shape here, instead of clicking and letting go, if you click and hold, then you can go ahead and just bend that around. And then click to set that, then click and hold and bend that down. So that click and hold when you're in corner vertex mode can be a huge help. Also, then you can get in when you're editing, just double click and that'll let you start editing some of it. And you can then play with all these different little handles to refine the shapes that you're working on. So that's kind of the quick tip for the polyline tool. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at sweep, which is similar in some ways in that you create a profile and then it sweeps it around. This time it'll sweep it around radially. So what we can do, and I'll just kind of show you, I guess. Let's go ahead and create a little vase. And there. It's a big bulbous vase. So there is the profile of our vase. Then we'll go up to Model, and we will just go to Sweep. 360 degrees. That means it's going to sweep around one full circle. And there we go. There's our little vase. So it's a super quick way to bring things into 3D. Again, to get in and edit this, it's very similar. You just double click, and there's your profile. So I could get in, and I'll bring in my reshape tool, and I want to make that a little better, and I want to do more of a thing here. Let's see. What I might actually do, I want to give this a little flat top here real quick so I can show you something else. So I'll just cut that off. So now I've got a flat top here. Actually, maybe I'll give a little lip to it. Just add those together. Okay, so that is our vase now. What we can do is we can hollow this out because a vase wouldn't be a solid. So this is right now one giant mass. One thing again you can do is go to Shell Solid, if you remember that tool. So if we select that, let's say we want a 1-inch wall. Go ahead and select the surface you want to be open. Actually, I think because I drew this so gigantically, 1 inch probably isn't going to do much for us. So let me make that 6 inches and just see what that does. Okay, so there you go. So now it is hollow, like an actual vase. The other way you could do that is to change your profile itself. So here we are. What we can do is use our offset. Let's bring it in 5 inches, like that. Pull that up. Then I'll just clip these. Get rid of that. There we go. So it's hollow because we changed it on the profile side, as opposed to changing it with the shell solids. The other thing you may want, let's jump to something else. You may want to create something that's more of a donut. So when you're drawing your profiles here, bear in mind that it's going to rotate around the left-hand side. So imagine that this line is your pivot. So it's going to spin around that. But you could move this all the way out and have it spin around that. You can do that not actually with a line, but with a 2D locus. So if you drop this, the locus is basically just creating a reference point that doesn't actually render anything. So you can use that as a way to say, this point, I will include this in the sweep, and that now becomes the furthest left point of this object. So now I'll sweep it. No pitch. And you'll see that creates a bit of a donut. So if I were to get in there, and I were to move this locus left or right, you'll see it will stretch the object. And I'm just holding shift and using arrow keys right now to kind of move that locus. So the closer you bring that, the tighter it will get. Something else you can play with is when you run this, you don't have to always sweep 360 degrees. You could just run it 180 degrees. And again, you can go over to Object Info, and you can change this stuff. Do 270. And you can also add pitch if you wanted to. That means it will travel up. It's hard to see again because I'm in such a funky scale. Let's change that a little bit more. Let's change it to 10 foot. So now it shifts as it goes up, kind of creating something of a corkscrew. Let's make this go around many, many, many times, and you'll see that creates that kind of corkscrew. So that's something you can play with, is the idea of pitch or the amount of sweep that you're going to do. So I don't use it a ton, but when you need it, it's the only tool for the job. All right, I think that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.